Welcome. My name is Edmore Masaka from Edith Cowan University. Today I'm going to be demonstrating to you how to carry out a respiratory fit test using the Portacount machine and following the Australian New Zealand Standard 1715 of 2015 and also the OSHA Standard 1910.134 following the procedure that is stipulated in Appendix A of that standard. And before conducting any respiratory fit test, it is important to prepare the actual respirators that we actually use for conducting the fit test. And today I'm going to be demonstrating how to prepare a disposable first piece respirator, which is the 3M 9200 series. For that one, we actually probe. It is a destructive test, so we actually probe to insert a probe while you connect the sampling tube. And I'm also going to demonstrate how to prepare the 3M 6000 series half-face respirator, reusable respirator. For that one, we insert what is called an adapter. So I'll start with the 3M 9200 series. This is the respirator. In this particular case, I have probed it, but I'm going to explain how you actually conduct the probe. But before doing that, it is important to inspect the respirator for structural integrity. So for the disposable first piece, it is important to check the first piece material itself to make sure that it is not damaged in any way, to make sure that especially the areas where it seals, you don't have any kinks, you don't have any holes, it is not twisted in any way, and also to check the elasticity of the straps to make sure, because these are the ones that will ensure that you have a tight fit. And also this one has got an exhalation valve, so it is important to actually check that every part which is supposed to be there is there, the valve sitting there, it is actually sitting properly, it is not missing. So that is what you need to do that. So now coming to how you actually probe. By probing, we are saying that you actually make a hole, preferably on the side of the respirator, in such a way that it is not going to interfere with the person's breathing when they are actually donning the respirator. You make a hole. And to make a hole, we actually use a punching machine, this one here, which comes with the Portacount machine. And what happens is you actually use what is called a push nut and also an eyelet. The push nut is a small washer-like piece of metal which is concave on one side. So you actually insert that washer, making sure that the concave side is facing up. And then you actually put the eyelet in the bottom part of that. Then you actually probe, put your respirator in between like this. So in between the top and bottom part of the punching machine, and then you press. Then after pressing hard, you actually hear it click, and when it clicks, you can remove that. And you should be able to also check whether the probe is sitting properly. It is not, to make sure that it is firm. Turn it around. If it twists, it means that it is not properly, you haven't actually done the probing properly. So just make sure that it is quite firm, it doesn't twist. And also check inside the probe itself to make sure that you don't have any residual material in there, because it can actually block the airflow when you connect the sampling tube. So that is how you actually prepare a disposable first piece respirator. And it is preferably to do this before you actually conduct the fit test. Now I'm now going to demonstrate how to adapt a half-face reusable respirator, and I'm going to demonstrate using the 3M 6000 series. So for this one here, there is a special adapter that comes for this type of a respirator, and this is the adapter. And the adapter, what you basically need to do is to make sure that before you put it in, you actually connect a small tube inside. This side here of the adapter will actually connect to the sampling tube that goes to the Portacount machine, and this one here goes inside the actual respirator. So you actually connect this tube, and for this adapter, what you have is at the end of it, or you have this clip here, which you actually put to the end of the tube that you connect. This is the one that will go inside the respirator. And then this rubber cap here is a suction cap, which will fit between the forks like that. And then what happens when it gets into the respirator, you can now press this against the wall of the respirator, this suction cap, and it will stick. And to make sure that it does not interfere at all with the breathing. It's not in front of the nose with the breathing of the person. So that is basically what you do. So you actually remove, like in this particular case, this one has got P2 particulate filters. So I'm going to remove the particulate filter. And when you are adapting, after you have actually connected this tube in here, you actually put it inside the respirator, and make sure that when it sits, it actually sits and sticks like to the top here of towards the, not in front of the nose, so that it doesn't interfere with the person's breathing. So that is the process of adapting a half-face respirator before you actually conduct the fit test. But before doing that, it is also important to have actually gone through inspecting the respirator for structural integrity. You actually check to make sure that the material itself is in good condition. It is not damaged in any way. There are no cracks, there are no holes, and to make sure that it is not deformed in any way where it actually forms the seal. And to check inside where we have got the valve, here the external valve, to make sure that all parts are in place. And if there are parts are not, you might need to replace those that are damaged to make sure there's no dead as well, because that can actually interfere with the respirator. And also to ensure that the strap itself is in good condition, and it actually clips, to make sure that it actually, you'll be able to achieve a proper seal. So that is how you prepare the respirator for half-face reusable respirator for fit testing. The next stage after preparing the respirators for the fit test, the next stage will be to connect the Portacount machine. Before starting any fit testing, it is important to conduct the daily check. And the daily check is intended to achieve three things. The first thing is to measure the concentration of particles in the ambient air. And it is recommended that you need to have not less than 350 particles per cubic centimeter in the ambient air. The second purpose of doing the daily check is to check whether there are any leaks in the system, in the machine itself, in the tubing. And then the last purpose of conducting a daily check is to calculate the fit factor, which will be used to determine whether the fit test passes or not. So it is important, as I said, to make sure that the pipework is connected correctly. I'm now going to demonstrate how to conduct the fit test, and I'll actually be showing this on the computer screen. I'm now going to demonstrate, as I mentioned, on the computer screen. I'm starting the daily check. So the first thing that happens is that the machine will ask you to discharge the HEPA filter. In this particular case, I don't have a HEPA filter connected, so I will click continue to proceed. So the first thing is it does a particle check. It actually determines how many particles you have in the ambient air. That is the first stage that it does. So in our particular case, we actually have more than 350. We have got 1,124 particles per cubic centimeter in the ambient air. So it is proper to actually proceed. So the next thing is the machine is now doing what is called a classifier check. and from there it will proceed to perform what is called the zero check. But before performing the zero check, it will actually request me to connect a HEPA filter. Like right now, it is now asking me to connect a HEPA filter. What is important is to make sure that the HEPA filter is connected correctly. There is an arrow on the HEPA filter which has got a direction. So you've got to actually connect it correctly according to that arrow. I have now connected the HEPA filter. So the next stage is to continue. So the machine is now conducting what is called a zero check. Now we have Martin here is going to demonstrate to us how to don a respirator and how to doff it, that is to take it on and to take it off. And there are a number of things that he needs to demonstrate. I've got to satisfy myself that he knows how to wear the respirator properly. He knows what to check on the respirator for damage, for elasticity of the straps. So I'll ask Martin, have you done a respirator before?
I have, yes.
Okay. And have you been in a car with someone smoking in the last hour, or a drink or food in the last 30 minutes?
No smoking or drinking or eating.
Or eating. So I'll just ask you to demonstrate to me how you done this disposable respirator. The other important thing is just to make sure that he doesn't have any beard like stubble or sideburns, because that can interfere with an effective seal.
Very good with it. Stuff again.
Yes. He is clean shaven, I can see that. He doesn't have a mustache, he doesn't have sideburns.
Checking the integrity of it as well.
Yes, the integrity, the valves. Check sure that
ventilation valve and that it's intact. Stuff.
Another important aspect is to make sure that the straps are not twisted in any way. Then also you need to shape with two fingers like that, nose clip to mold around your nose. Okay, may you turn around? I just want to see the straps. That looks good. Okay, then do you know how to do a fit check? Because I'm going to do that every time you wear a respirator. If you can feel any leak, then we have to sort of start and check that. Yes, yeah, I know with an acceleration valve it's a bit difficult. So what will happen is you done this for about a few minutes, about 5 minutes. Just it's called the comfort period, for him to actually feel that he feels comfortable wearing that respirator. If he indicates that he's not feeling comfortable, we have got to check maybe he hasn't done it properly, or maybe it doesn't fit. Then we have to choose a different respirator. Got it. We are now going to proceed and conduct the actual fit test. And we have already probed this disposable respirator, the 3M9200 series. And he is going to don it again, and we are going to check to make sure that he has actually fitted it properly. And then from there, we'll proceed to do the fit test. We'll be demonstrating how the fit test is going on the screen. So you just go again, just don it again the way you did. You just follow almost the same process as you did when we were testing the other mask. But these masks are exactly the same. The one that we are using now is exactly the same as the one that he demonstrated his competence. So again, we have to check that he's wearing it properly.
Other strap?
Yes, so you need the other strap needs to go below the ears. Then you start there and make sure that you've molded again with 2 fingers down, like that, not one. Now this is actually connected to the sampling tube. The clear tube, this one, that's the sampling tube. This one actually samples the air inside the respirator, and the blue tube summons the ambient air to actually calculate the fit factor. So what will happen now, Martin, we are going to start this fit test. There will be a number of exercises that you go through. It's a total of 8. You are not supposed to talk unless we come to the stage when you have to talk. If you talk outside that stage or before or after that stage that you are supposed to talk, we will be forced to stop and start the whole process again. And if you feel uncomfortable at any time, feel free to let me know. You can just raise your hand. So what will happen is we'll go through the first stage, then towards the end of that stage, the machine will beep. That is an indication that you are now going to the next exercise. So what we'll do is we'll now start. And we'll now start now. So the first stage is just normal breathing. Standing in your position, you just breathe normally. This is supposed to mimic what happens in the workplace, the different positions, working positions. Sometimes you are standing, or sometimes you are bending, or you are twisting your head, or you are breathing normally. So at this stage, the ambient concentration in the ambient is over 350, which is what is required for an effective test. So after this stage, the next stage will be deep breathing. Whilst you are standing in your position, you take a deep breath, right? That is the deep breathing stage. Just take a deep breath, slowly. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, slowly. And there are a number of things that will happen. Sometimes you can get a fault at this stage, which might mean that you don't have adequate or enough particles in the ambient air. Then you have to stop and generate some more using the generator. Or it could be because you have a leak in the system. So you just have to stop and check the connections again to make sure that they are properly connected. So after this, the next stage will be moving your head from side like that to side. So this stage is counting down again, but exactly the same thing. Those are the usual positions that you find yourself in the workplace. Then after this, when it beeps, the next stage will be your head up and down. That will be the next stage after the beep. Right? You go down your head. After this, after the beep, the next stage will be just talking. So you might want to talk to us. I'll give you, if you want the rainbow passage, you can read the rainbow passage. Or maybe you can tell us about your latest golf experience, the golfing experience. Right.
On Monday, I played golf against my grandson, who beat me. And his father, he also beat me. He's only 9, and he plays down at Bunbury. He's pretty good. What takes me a lot of time setting up and twiddling around and going off to hit a ball. He just takes one practice swing and then cracks the ball and it goes straight, whereas mine go all over the place. In fact, I'm pretty useless. But yeah, one day I'll beat him. Also my sister, who's a tennis player, she beats me as well, so I might as well give up.
Maybe it's age.
What?
Right, at this stage now, just grimacing, just grimace. This is the fun part of it, just grimacing. We cannot see how you're doing, but you just need to grimace. Then after that, the next stage is bending over. So bend over, down, like that. Follow, and up slowly. Keep on doing that. It is going to beep for the next stage. Then the next stage, which is the last one, is just normal breathing in your standing position. you actually breathe normally again, just like we did in stage 1. And what is important is once you've been tested for a proper fit on a particular respirator, that is the respirator you have got to use when you are in the workplace where you are trying to protect against that particular hazard. But then if you are going to change to a different work environment, a different hazard, that will be different. Or maybe if you have facial changes for some reason, maybe due to sickness, then you have got to go for another fit test. Right. So that is it. That is the end of this fit test. So this actually shows that this has actually passed for the 3M disposable respirator, which is 9,200 Cs. So that is what you've got to wear in the work. The first important thing to consider are the health and safety issues. People can react to some of the detergents, for example, some of the chemicals that we actually use to sanitize or to clean the respirators and the equipment. And also the equipment that you use, like the Portacount machine or the particle generator, is connected to electrical power. So there's an exposure there in terms of electric shocks and electrocution. You've got people with health issues such as asthma, for example, or respiratory disorders may struggle, for example, to breathe when they don on some of these respirators. And other individuals actually feel claustrophobic, especially if you are going to be using, for example, the full face respirator. I'm now going to basically talk about the impact on the actual fit test method itself. If you are going to be conducting a respiratory fit test in any room with air conditioning, especially your high volume air conditioning systems, that can actually cause the machine to give you a low particle count, and you might need to have a particle generator which comes as part of the Portacount machine. If the particle count is too high, that can actually cause the test itself to fail. Then you have got a number of confounding factors as well. Things such as if a person has been smoking, let's say less than an hour before, that can impact on the particle count. Because what happens is a person can actually continue to release particles after smoking for a considerable period of time after smoking. So what is important is also to realize that there are certain factors that may interfere with the fit of the respirator. Because what it does is, what is important here is to have an effective seal. That is how a person gets protection, so that you don't have particulates coming inside the respirator. So things like facial hair, if a person has got facial hair, the facial hair can interfere with the actual seal. So there are things such as stubble. You can have stubble, or you can have beards or mustache. That can actually interfere with the seal. So if a person has got that, they shouldn't actually proceed to undergo the fit test. Factors also that can actually interfere with this fit for the respirator are things such as the personal protective equipment that people wear. Things such as eyeglasses, things such as goggles, things such as hearing protection, and sometimes people have got to wear hoods as part of their work, or face shoes. So it is important to bear in mind that when you are conducting the fit test, it has got to be done with the person wearing the personal protective equipment that they normally wear when they are in the workplace or conducting reasons why fit test may fail. The first thing is you've got a poor seal. If you have got a poor seal, it means that it is leaking. If the seal is leaking, you cannot proceed with that. It could be maybe the first seal itself or has an air leak, so you can't proceed. That you have got to stop. Or sometimes if the test subject speaks during a non-speaking exercise, because there are a number of 8 exercises and they are not supposed to speak except during the speaking exercise. And the same thing also if they touch the respirator during the test itself, you have to stop and then start again, because it can interfere with the seal itself. Basically, it depends on the type of respirator that you are testing a fit on a subject. And for your half-face respirator or quarter-face respirators, the required minimum fit factor that must be achieved is 100. And for your full-face respirator, these are reusable respirators. The required minimum fit factor is 500. As it will calculate, the machine will calculate fit factors for each exercise. What is important is the overall fit factor at the end. You can have maybe out of one out of the 8 exercises falling below. That doesn't necessarily mean that the overall fit factor will fail. What is important is the actual overall fit factor itself. That is what must be achieved. I'm just going now to talk about the importance of the location for carrying fit test, its suitability. It's preferably recommended that the room be at least about 20 square meters to ensure that you've got enough room for the person to do the exercises required, and also to ensure that you can maintain a sufficient amount of ambient air concentration of particles, because too big a room will reduce that. And then the other thing also I'm going to talk about is just some of the common errors that you can come across when doing this exercise. The most common error is usually a low particle count. And there are a number of things that can actually cause a low particle count. And the most important or common one is low alcohol level. When that happens, you can actually just replenish the alcohol in the machine, and also sometimes some of the hoses may be reversed in terms of correct connection of the hoses, is to ensure that they are connected correctly. Sometimes they can be kinked, or they can be twisted, or they can be blocked. So it's important to straighten them, and also it's important to remove the blockage that can cause that. Or sometimes you can have your zero check fail. And when that happens, it could be a question of, again, the loose alcohol cartridge. It is just a question of securing that. And it's also a question of that the tubes are damaged, that they are leaking, or replacing those tubes. Or sometimes what happens is the twin tubes themselves can be reversed in terms of connection, is to ensure that they are connected correctly. And also you can get a zero check, fail in a zero check when the O-ring, there's an O-ring on the alcohol cartridge. If that O-ring is leaking, that can cause that problem. So it just needs to be replaced. So those are respirator itself. So it's also important to check that is okay. It is important to maintain records, and the information that you actually maintain should comprise of the following. You need the name of the person that is undergoing the test, preferably their ID number. It could be maybe their work number. You also need to record the date that the test was conducted, the respirators that the person was tested on, that is in terms of their type, in terms of their model, their style, their size. And also it's important to record details about the workplace itself, where the person works, the name of the company or maybe the department, and also to record the equipment that was used. If it is a Portacount machine, it will have a serial number. So it's important to record that in the records. Briefly talk about the importance of maintaining infection control during the testing itself. It is important. Washing hands is very important for both the person conducting the test and also the person being tested. So, and also the other important thing is cleaning procedures or practices of the masks. The mask needs to be wiped like between each and every person who is being tested. After a person has been tested, you can use some of the wipes to wipe to clean that. Tubing, for example, by pouring about 100% isopropanol through the tubes, and then you can use compressed air to dry them. And